Good evening, Clovis. We are back here at the Clovis Police Department. We are with you live from the Detectives Division, and we will be answering your questions with a detective as previously advertised. The session will go from anywhere from 5 minutes to 30 minutes, mattering on how many questions you guys have. And we appreciate you watching on the playback because most of you guys will be watching after the fact, like on your DVR. So if you have questions and we are not live, please type them into your comments and we will get to you, I promise. At this time, we are going to introduce to you Detective Jim Koch. He is the sergeant over the Clovis Police Department Investigations Division, and I will let him introduce himself.
Thank you very much, Ty. It's good to be here tonight. A couple of things we're just going to go over before we get started. We want to answer as many questions as we can and give out as much information as we can, but we are going to ask that if you have an ongoing open case with our department right now, please don't call us and ask questions about that. That would be something that we want to keep private. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have about that, but that needs to be done during business hours and with the detective that's in charge of the case, so we're not sharing it with everybody here. A little bit about me. I've been with the department a little over 20 years now. I've had several different assignments throughout the divisions, and right now, currently, I am the supervisor of the Investigations Division and enjoying it very much.
Okay, so while we are waiting for questions to come in, we're going to start off with a couple that we have typed up previously, just because it's some good information. First of all, can you explain to us how many detectives and staff are working in the Detectives Division?
In our Detective Division right now, we have 4 civilian staff, 8 general detectives, 1 citizen volunteer in the general investigations, and then we have another division, which is the SET, the Special Enforcement Team, and they are 7 officers and a sergeant over there.
Fantastic. Can you tell me what the general role of a detective is assigned to general detectives?
A general investigations detective can handle anything from a child abuse case to a homicide to a identity theft to a burglary. They get a vast variety of cases assigned to each one of them. Each detective takes their turn being the on-call detective for a week. And when they are on call, if something happens in the middle of the night, if something happens during off hours, that detective is responsible for coming out and beginning the investigation. And usually if they do start an investigation, they're the one that finishes that investigation. So they could get called out for a homicide, and they would be the primary investigator on that. Obviously, they would have a lot of help from some of the other detectives. Once they're doing an investigation, most of the time they want to take it from the very beginning to the very end. Most of the detectives take their cases very personal, and they will work them as much as they can. We have the civilians that are assigned to us. We have 2 crime analysts. We have a principal office assistant, and all of them work very closely with each of the detectives, helping them in their day-to-day jobs. And I did mention earlier that we have a citizen volunteer in our volunteer division of the police department. One of them is actually assigned to us, and she spends quite a bit of time over here helping the detectives with what they're doing.
At this time, I'm going to grab your wireless mic and turn up the volume because we're getting some comments that people can't hear us. So this is something with Facebook Live that we're working on. And please comment. The volume's all the way up. We're just going to leave that right there if that's okay with you.
Sure.
And here's another question. Can you tell us how many cases we worked in 2015?
2015, the detective division handled quite a few cases. I'm going to look at my notes here just to give you the exact numbers because I want to be as accurate as possible. We handled just a little less than 475 cases throughout the year. And then when we had all those cases, we cleared probably close to 215 of those cases were cleared. When I say clear, that means that the detective got the case assigned to them and handled it all the way through, whether that included arresting somebody for it or solving the crime or doing as much follow-up as possible. But clearing the case means that it was solved. We didn't just suspend the case or leave it alone.
Okay, thank you very much. Also, can you tell me, on average, approximately how many cases a detective has at any given time?
Any given time, a detective can have anywhere from 10 to 30 cases assigned to him. And the reason why that is some of the cases can be handled immediately. We can pick up a case, and it can be a couple hours of investigation, and we're able to solve it. Other ones take a long time. Sometimes we have to write a search warrant for a case, and when we say write a search warrant, we write a search warrant that goes to a company that provides us with information, anything from cell phone records to bank records and things like that. And that can take weeks, sometimes months, to get all that information back. and gather it together and solve a crime.
Michael has a question about AB 109. Can you tell us about how AB 109 has affected the crime rate in Clovis or changed the detective's job at all?
AB 109 has affected us, and I think it's affected all of law enforcement. The effect can be seen in many different ways. For us, we seem to have a lot more of the same people doing the same things over and over again. I think that would probably be the best way to describe it over in an investigation where you have a crime that occurs, someone is arrested for it, they're released on AB 109, and they start doing the same crime over and over again.
Let's talk a little bit about the detective's assignment here at the Clovis Police Department. Can you tell us how someone gets assigned to our division for general investigations?
Sure. Most of the time, police officers have to have anywhere from 3 to 5 years on as a police officer full-time doing their job. And once they've been doing that for about anywhere from 3 to 5 years, they can apply for a position if there's a position open. Now, with the amount of officers that we have in our department and the amount of detectives, obviously it takes a long time for someone to get to that position. It generally lasts about 3 years is the assignment time over here in investigations. And during that time, there's quite a bit of training the detectives go to. And that helps them when they go back as a patrol officer or wherever else they transfer to in the police department.
Patricia has a question. Are there any detectives or any of the police department employees dealing with the growing homeless population here in Clovis?
Absolutely. The growing homeless problem is addressed quite often. It's not handled actually in the detective bureau of the police department. It's handled over in the patrol division, and there's a corporal that's assigned to that, and that corporal keeps a close eye on everything that happens during day-to-day business with the police department and dealing with the different homeless people that we have. Some of you might remember that it's Corporal Curtis Shirtliff. He's the dancing corporal from the rodeo. That's probably the best way to describe him.
Fantastic. We all knew that. That was a good post, by the way. Good dancing, Corporal Shirtliff. Jeff up in Harlan Ranch wants to know that because they've heard a couple of rumors going around that about the possibility of a substation going up there. Do we have any information about that at the time? I haven't heard anything, but
no, I have not heard anything about that. Anything about a substation up in the north end of town.
Sean asks a good question about the district attorney's office. He wants to know how closely we work with the DA's office to ensure that everything is done that needs to be done for a successful prosecution.
Sean, that's a great question. We spend hours on the phone with the district attorney's office regularly regarding just about any case that we work. In the detective division, the cases that we follow up on are all felony cases, so they're very serious crimes. Prior to us finishing a case, most of the detectives will have had a conversation with the district attorney's office, explaining them the case, giving them the facts that we have, letting them read the report, and then letting them ask us questions. There's times that they may have something that just doesn't, not a whole lot more needs to be done, but they just have a question about it, and they will contact us. We'll do follow-ups for them, and then when a case does go to court, the detective that's handled that will generally be there in court when the case is being tried.
Great. Michael gave a shout-out from Lemoore PD, so thank you very much, Lemoore PD. Good to have you on our side. Tom wants to know, is ID theft an increasing problem in Clovis?
Yes, ID theft is an ever-growing problem. With all the changes, ID theft just occurs regularly. We do the best that we can to investigate these cases, but some of them are worldwide, different frauds, different things like that. Some of them can be very, very difficult to investigate.
Jeff wants to know, and I don't remember if we mentioned this earlier, maybe he joined us late. He'd like to know the type of cases that detectives handle just in general. He asked from homicide to burglary and anything in between.
Absolutely. The general rule of thumb is that we handle all felony cases that need follow-up on them. In our department, we like to see our patrol officers follow up on any of the misdemeanor cases. But if they do have a misdemeanor case that is just different in some manner that needs our investigations, we will do it. But generally, it's all felony cases that need follow-up. That can be anything from a felony burglary case to a homicide to an assault with a deadly weapon case and domestic violences.
A couple of shout-outs to you, by the way. Eric Adams and Dee Dee Wilson both say hi. Apparently, you worked with Dee Dee up in another police department. Kevin wants to know, how many homicides occurred in Clovis last year?
You know, without looking at specifics, I believe in 2015 we had one homicide. We had a couple of attempt homicides, and I don't have those statistics right here in front of me, but I want to say probably one. And hopefully Ty here is pretty good at that kind of stuff. He'll be able to tell me here in just a minute if I was right on my answers.
He is. He's very right. We had one homicide. We did have a couple other major crime scenes, but homicides were one in 2015, knock on wood. Another citizen would like to know how Prop 47 is affecting our city.
We spoke about that a little bit earlier in different interviews that we've had. It does affect our city. I think it affects everybody. It affects law enforcement nationwide with the different problems that we're having.
Melanie wants to know if we've had any incidents of criminals putting card readers on ATMs or gas stations to commit credit card fraud.
Credit card fraud can be done in so many different ways, and one of them is putting a reader at a gas station or at a public place. But we have had a few cases over the last year where that has happened. We've investigated those cases along with the FBI and other agencies around here. I can think off the top of my head probably at least 2 or 3 cases where we've had that, and that's when we suggest that when you go someplace, you use your debit card. If it doesn't look right, most of the time they put that little sticker over the cover where you're inserting your card to make sure that it hasn't been tampered with. I'm sure most of you have seen those. Look for those. Pay attention to that kind of stuff because that's a place where your credit card is going to be compromised. And once that happens, it takes quite a bit of time to get that all cleaned up.
I'm going to take care of a question real quick. Patricia wants to know how we can work with businesses to properly position surveillance cameras inside their business to get better views of them. I actually work with the loss prevention employees at about 50 of the retail businesses. We are constantly sharing information, giving them tips and whatnot to how to work their surveillance systems, what is good and what's bad for as far as placement and time kept for DVR purposes. Dolores wants to thank us for our service. Thank you, Dolores. Here's a shout out to you. Tom wants to know, do we have any female detectives with our agency right now?
Yes, we do. We have, out of the number that we have back here, 1, 2, 3 are female detectives.
And Lisa wants to know what can be done to stop speeding on Shepherd. I'm going to refer you to our traffic hotline. If it's not happening right now, please call our traffic hotline at 324-3400. That information goes directly to our traffic supervisor, and he puts that information out to his motorcycle officers to handle traffic-related issues like that. Jordan wants to know, will we or do we have the capability of tying into their home surveillance system if we authorize or if they authorize that?
At this time, I don't know of any plans or any ways for us to log into people's personal video systems that they have at their house. Most of those are monitored by alarm companies, and then, of course, those alarm companies contact us. Some of the schools and other larger businesses have alarm companies that will contact us when their alarms are activated, and they will provide us with that information in real time. They will stay on the phone and give us that. But right now, I don't have anything or know of anything in place to be monitoring other people's personal cameras.
Abby wants to know, due to the increase in vandalisms and thefts from our community mailboxes, what is Patrol proactively doing to try to stop that type of crime in our city?
Well, right now we have several things that we're doing. That's a good question also because it affects everybody. Things that we want to remind people is to keep an eye on those mailboxes. If you see somebody suspicious around them, give us a call. We're working very closely with the U.S. Postal Service on several different things to combat the problems that we're having. We're having the people breaking into them, stealing your mail, and then which people think, okay, you're just stealing my mail, but then you've got their identity because you've stolen checks from them or you've stolen personal information, and it can be a very large problem. Working with the Postal Service and other agencies, we've come up with a couple of different plans that we've put into place to try to catch these people, which we have caught a few recently, and hopefully we'll catch more as time goes on.
I want to give a shout out to the more than 34,000 people that we've reached so far, whether they're live with us on Facebook now or whether they're scrolling through their feed and checking us out. If you have any questions and you're not watching and you're watching this after the fact, like most of you will, go ahead and type in your comments and we will get to them in the next day. Um, Here's a question, and she lives in Quail Lake. Jewel would like to know, is there a gang problem in Clovis because they've seen a little bit of graffiti out by their neighborhood of Quail Lakes?
Well, a couple of different things there. You live in Quail Lakes. That is in the county of Fresno. That is not in the city of Clovis. And if you see stuff like that, you need to report that to your local law enforcement agency, which would be the Fresno County Sheriff's Department. We pay very close attention to any graffiti that turns up in our city. We have a graffiti abatement team that goes out and immediately removes it. That's one of the best things that we've found is to remove it immediately. And then we've taken pictures of it, and our investigators have had cases where they have followed up because people will use their moniker in a gang name or anything like that, and we'll follow up and try to arrest them for those events.
Okay, here's an important question by Donald. He wants to know if you prefer pancakes or waffles.
Donald, pancakes or waffles? I'm a waffle guy, to be honest. I like waffles.
Yeah, me too. Little strawberries and whipped cream. I love that. That's real good. Jeff, to answer your question, yes, it's the same phone number citywide for city traffic complaints as far as speeders go at 324-3400. But just remember, if it's a crime in progress, like you think it's a DUI driver or something like that, you can pick up the phone and dial 911. Another easy way to report it, and you don't have to wait for a recording or anything 24 hours a day, if you haven't downloaded our app, here's a little plug for that. Go to either the Android or the iPhone App Store, type in Clovis Police Department Mobile, and download it. You can do everything from provide an anonymous tip to a crime, ask questions, register your bicycle, commend an officer, check out all of our news feeds for all the press releases that we've done since it. So again, that's Clovis Police Department Mobile, and you can do that on any smartphone that you have, and of course it's free. Sean wants to know, have we seen an increase in home invasion style burglaries or robberies?
We have had a few of those in the recent past. Most of them are not, when you describe it as a home invasion robbery, people sometimes picture just for unknown reasons somebody kicking in your door and taking your property. And most of the ones that we've investigated recently, the suspects have some sort of a tie to the victims, whether they've known them in the past, whether they've had contacts with them in the past, or they have mutual friends. So we don't want people to think that there's just a band of people running around our city kicking in doors and taking people's property. When you hear of a home invasion, that's what most people think. Right now, the ones that we've investigated, there has been some sort of a tie to the people involved in the incident.
Christine has a good question. She asks if there's any tips that you can have or recommend for better securing a sliding glass door or window from being forced open.
Just the ones I can think off the top of my head. You go to the hardware store, they have the locks that go into the railing. You just drill them in there, and there's a hole, and there's a pin that drops in there. It makes it very, very difficult to get the sliding glass door off, and it also works well on windows.
I've also gone to the wood section at the Lowe's or the Home Depot, and you can cut it to fit and just buy dowels, maybe the thickness of a broomstick, and just slide it in there. Obviously, nothing is foolproof, but that's sometimes a lot better than just the simple lock that's included with this sliding glass door. Here's another question. Approximately how long are you a detective with our agency? Is it a full-time thing, or is it permanent? Do they go back, or what's
in
the
our
assignment?
police department, the detectives are generally assigned to a division for 3 years. We find that the detective can come in, learn their job, learn a lot of important information, and then take that back to the patrol division when they go back to patrol, share it with the people there, and allow somebody else to come in and get that special training.
Will has a pretty good question about making their vehicles safer and a lower risk of getting broken into. Do you have any tips as far as when you park your car, is there any extra steps you can do to hopefully have a criminal not break into your car?
Absolutely. Know your surroundings. Look when you're going someplace. Pay attention to what's going on around you. But most importantly, don't leave items of value that are inside your car. Don't leave a purse sitting on the front seat. Don't leave a backpack in your back seat of your car. Don't leave anything that has value to it or can be easily removed from the car, because it's very easy to just smash a window and grab. There's plenty of burglaries that occur in our city where they smash the window to a car and grab a backpack that had nothing but dirty laundry in it. They don't know. The people that are breaking into the cars, they don't know what's in them. So the best thing that you can do is don't leave anything out that's of value. Don't leave anything to bring attention to the interior of your car. Park in a well-lit place and be aware of your surroundings.
Stephen has a question in regards to community-oriented policing. Can you give us a couple examples of what our agency is doing to get out there in the community and be better community-oriented?
Our police department has several different things that they do to go out and be with the community. This summer, we're having our kids camp where the children can come and they get to spend the day with a police officer, some wearing uniform, some in plain clothes. We send officers out to any type of public event. Generally in the city of Clovis, if there's a public event going on, you'll see some form of the police department, whether it's someone from the patrol division, someone from the investigations division, someone from youth services, or someone from a specialty team driving a specialty vehicle. We spend a lot of time and a lot of effort to go out and be part of our community.
There's been a couple questions in regards to gangs, and they'd like to know, first of all, does Clovis have a gang problem? And what are we doing to proactively do our best to stop that activity?
I don't know what you would really consider a gang problem. I mean, different people have different thoughts of what that could be. Anytime we see any rise in crime, anytime we see anybody that we feel is involved in a crime, whether they're gang related or not, we're going to contact them and we're going to be involved with them. Our special enforcement team, they sometimes will find an area that it appears that there is some gang activity, and they will spend quite a bit of time there contacting these people and finding out why they're here and finding out what's going on. There are several different ways that we handle that. We actually have a police corporal in our Planning and Neighborhood Services Department, and his job is to pay attention to what goes on in apartment complexes and rental facilities throughout our city. If we find that there's people moving in that may be gang related and there's other people with them, maybe get one or two apartments in a large complex and it starts to look like it could become a gang problem, we'll have meetings with the managers, meetings with the people, and try to take care of it.
Sounds good. It looks like we don't have any more questions right now, so let's go back to one of our base questions. Is in 2015, I know we talked about the stats as far as how many cases we had. Can you give us an example or a stat on how many arrests that General Investigations made last year?
Just the detectives, so that's not the people that made the arrests out, the patrol officers, but just the investigators. They had about a little over 50 adults arrested and probably right around 20 juveniles arrested, and those would all be for felony crimes. And when they're doing those investigations, there's a lot of work involved in it. There was over 100 search warrants authored just by the investigations division. That means those detectives wrote search warrants, and that could be for, like I spoke about earlier, just phone information, or it could be for a residence or a business or any, a vehicle, anything like that.
There's been a couple questions about texting while driving. One person wants to know, sorry, and it just skipped on us. Linda wants to know if they see a vehicle or they take a picture of a license plate of someone while they are texting and driving, is there anything that the police department can do about that?
Something like that, I think you're looking at a couple of different things. One is the traffic division handles those types of things. Obviously, that's not something we handle here in investigations, but I don't know that snapping a picture of a car that's committing a crime by using their phone and then you're using your phone, probably not a great idea. If you have the ability to call the police department and report it, if the person's driving erratically or anything like that, report that immediately, and we'll try to deal with that appropriately.
Jasmine has a question about ongoing police activity in your neighborhood, and I'm going to answer that question. If you'd like to know anything about police activity where you see our patrol vehicles or some type of police activity from the Clovis Police Department, go ahead and send us a private message on Facebook. We will get to your answer as soon as possible. It may not be within the call for service time, but we will always do our best to let you know why we are in your neighborhood. I know that can be a little bit exciting or nerve-wracking sometimes, but we do our best to answer those questions, whether it's just a probation or parole check, or maybe someone had something stolen out of their car that didn't even occur in their neighborhood. Officers will go out and take a police report. So we will do that as best as possible, but go ahead and message us on our Facebook page. While we're talking about social media, remember, obviously we're on Facebook because you're joining us here right now. We're also on Twitter. Our sign is ClovisPolice_CA. If you have not downloaded the Nextdoor app, that is one of the best social media sites out there currently to get our message across to the citizens, especially in our city. And you can also talk to your neighbors about it. If you have any questions regarding Nextdoor, you can also send us a message on Facebook or talk to some of your neighbors if you know who are on there. Jenny wants to know, would it be possible to do a ride-along with a detective?
We don't have anything in place right now for someone to come on a ride-along with a detective. If Jenny's interested in for a school project or something that she's working on, we'd be more than happy to meet with her, kind of talk about what we do. But right now, we don't have anything in place for someone to come go on a ride-along like you would do in the patrol division with an investigator.
Carlton wants to know, and I know the answer to this because I do it, is it okay to drink Starbucks and drive?
If you're careful.
If you're careful.
If you're careful.
And a lot of the times, due to the hours, that's what we survive on. So, Rachel, thank you very much. We will definitely do our best to keep that up, what we are doing now. Nancy wants to know, can more be done about the amount of trash on the roadways? I know that's obviously not a question for detectives, but can we at least point her in the right direction where she can report that?
Absolutely. When you're talking about trash on the roadways, if you're talking the highways like the freeways or within the city limits, I'm going to just speak about things that you would find within the city limits. Give us a call, but not to the police department, but over to the General Services Division of the city. If you look it up on their webpage, it'll have it all broken down into different areas. And if there's large amount of trash, and I'm speaking about like beds and couches and things like that, they will deal with that appropriately. If it's an ongoing problem with just one specific place, that could be handled by the police department. You could give us a call, and we could go out and contact the people, because sometimes people put trash out, and as we know, we have the big trash pickup in our city. It's kind of nice to have the big trash pickup, but it's not nice when people put it out a month or two in advance.
Okay, I think, sorry. Another question, a follow-up question to the neighborhood or apartment liaison in our Planning and Neighborhood Services Division. They want to know what change have you seen? Have we seen a positive change with working directly with those apartment managers and sometimes getting those criminals evicted from our city?
Yes, we've seen a huge positive change. We're able to handle things immediately. It doesn't take months for people to finally call us, and it doesn't take months for things to come up. The officers have direct contact with the landlords, and it helps because somebody doesn't just move out of one apartment to the next one down the street. All the apartment managers, they communicate, they have a network, and they work really closely with each other to make sure that people aren't moving from one apartment to another and causing problems. And that corporal that handles that is very, very busy, but is also very knowledgeable about what's going on throughout the city.
Okay, we are going to close this up by asking you one last question. And in your detective career personally, what is the most interesting case that you have investigated?
Several cases were interesting, but I think the one that's obviously going to come to point is back in 2003, we had a horrific homicide in our city. It was where a lady placed her husband in a vat of acid, and he was obviously killed during that incident. So we had a homicide trial involving two people in that. That was probably the most interesting and busy case that I ever had.
We would like to thank the almost 900,000 people that have reached into your Facebook feed and watched us tonight. Again, most of you will be watching this on a later time, like a DVR, hopefully skipping through the commercials. We don't have any commercials here, though, because we are a free social media site for you. Please remember, if you have not downloaded our police department app, it's a great resource. It has everything at your fingertips. It's free, and there's no reason not to do it. You can report anything from Clovis municipal code violations to potholes, graffiti. You can speak to the officers assigned to your beat as far as neighborhood questions. You can get us on your news feed as far as press releases. Look at our most wanted. You can even register your bicycle if it's ever stolen. Again, we are on Facebook, Nextdoor, and Twitter. Sergeant Cook, I would really like to thank you for your time tonight. Again, if we did not get to your question, or if you are watching at a later time and you have questions, please feel free to enter your comments below, and we will do our best to get to you in the next 24 hours. Thank you again, Clovis, and wherever else you may be watching. Have a wonderful night.